So I know y'all remember this, where Luka Doncic controlled the die and it led to a John Collins game-winning dunk. Even rewatching this, you can see there's one coach on the bench pointing out that John Collins is wide open, and it leads to that. And yeah, this is a really, really bad loss. And there were some real conversations after this happened about the Dallas Mavericks, right? They had a aggressive offseason. Has this shifted the dynamic of the team? Because not only did they lose to the Utah Jazz, this dropped them to 1-6 in clutch games. 1-6. Since then, a lot has changed. And that's why I said on the podcast that I'm not completely worried just yet, because I don't know if you go from one of the 3 best clutch teams in basketball the previous season to being dead last with just one offseason. Like, I needed a bigger sample size before I started to get worried. And they are 9-10 and they're 9-1 in their last 10 games. And a few of those are those clutch games that they were struggling to win earlier into the season. And like, these wins are good wins, man. And I'm gonna count them. Hey, I'm going to be very generous when I say good wins here. The Spurs, the very bare minimum, is a solid NBA team, right? That's a win. They beat OKC, while they're known as the best team in the Western Conference. They beat the Pelicans by 40. I'm not counting the Pelicans. They beat the Denver Nuggets. They beat the Atlanta Hawks. So I'm counting because they showed us this season that they're sneaky good, especially against good teams. They beat the Knicks, and then last night they beat the Grizzlies. So out of their 9 and 10 game wins, at least 6 of them are against solid to good to great teams. And I want to talk about last night's game against the Grizzlies because that was my game of the night. Again, I'm watching games differently this season. We have a 10-game slate. I'm really focusing on 3 to 4. And the Grizzlies versus Dallas Mavericks was my game of the night. And it was a game of the night contender. Even though the fourth quarter, if you watch this game, you know that fourth quarter was so awful. I mean, we had a million free throws. We had them going to the monitor for 7 minutes. It was hard to really sit through as a neutral fan, but I still want to talk about it after we hear a word from our sponsor. This video is brought to you by DoorDash. It is rare to get a sponsor from a service that you use so often. DoorDash is something I'm using multiple times a week. You can get food, alcohol, retail items, all delivered from your local shops and restaurants. When I'm in work mode, I'm not thinking about going to the kitchen and making my own lunches, so DoorDash comes in very, very clutch. I get the best burger in the town if I need to, and it's delivered right to my doorstep. DoorDash is always clutch, but it really comes in handy when I'm traveling, not just because of the food, but you know how many times I've been in a new city and I check my bag and I realize I forgot my charger at home. All I do is use DoorDash and get a new one delivered. Since DoorDash is hooking me up with a sponsor, they're hooking you up with a deal. So all you need to do is hit the link in the description and use code Kenny2024 to get 50% off up to $10 on any order over $15. Remember, that is code Kenny2024. Shout out again to DoorDash for sponsoring this video. That's what I get for filming videos at this time of the day. Maybe I just need to change my setup. The sun, shout out to the sun, bro. It's December. I'm happy that you're here, but I'm trying to work here, bro. All right, so there are a lot of cool things in this game from both sides, honestly. You saw the Memphis Grizzlies come out with a lot of aggression. Like they talked about on the broadcast that it felt like a playoff game. It was a NBA Cup game, which is basically the same thing, right? Where this was a ugly, like 3 quarters for the Dallas Mavericks. Turnover after turnover, open shot for this guy. Desmond Bane finally has a good moment. And one thing I was looking forward to coming into this game, because I think the major question for a lot of Dallas Mavericks critics was, how do you guard the explosive, aggressive guards across basketball? And I don't know if there's a more explosive, aggressive guard than Ja Morant. And it started off real slow. Ja Morant didn't attempt his first shot to the second quarter, which was surprising to me. But eventually we got to that third quarter. He completely ramped it up. Like, here's a possession here where it's Klay Thompson as the primary defender. And listen, Klay don't really stand a chance. That's even good defense. Klay don't really stand a chance. And then it became Kyrie Irving's responsibility, and they get the switch they want to Klay Thompson. And again, Ja Morant just takes him to school and gets a really easy look here. And I want you to note what the score is in this game. Like, at this point in time, the Grizzlies are running away with it. They just had a really successful third quarter. And a lot of that is, again, Ja Morant playmaking and getting into his scoring bag. And with about 5 minutes left, this is where I like to call the PJ Washington takeover. Where it starts off here, he's sitting in the corner. Luka Doncic getting all of the attention in the world after I think at this point he has 30 points, 34 points or so. PJ gets it, draws him off the line, gets an and one layup. So you thought that takeover is going to be because PJ Washington decided to hit a bunch of 3-pointers or scored 40 points in the fourth. No. This is where the takeover really started. So he gets the and one on one end, and for the rest of this game, 5 minutes left, it is his assignment to guard Ja Morant. And boy, did he do an amazing job, better than anybody else in this roster really did when it came to guarding Ja. This is a scenario where he has to pick him up on the break, and he does a phenomenal job of getting Ja Morant up in the air and passing it, which is Ja Morant's superpower. But this time it didn't work out. Then he's down there, he gets the jump ball, and he wins the jump ball. Go screen from Santi Aldama. Here comes Marcus Smart. He wants to carry Irvin assignment. No. We're not giving you that switch. We're going under, and we're going to force you to take another super tough shot. That's PJ Washington, y'all. Then we got the 40-minute review that I mentioned earlier. Oh my God. Oh my God. Stop it. It's still going. It's still going. It's still going. I've been fast forwarding for bro. This stinks. It's one of my least favorite things about the NBA. And for two of the most important possessions of the game, the ball is not in Ja Morant's hands. They do this Iverson cut for Desmond Bane, and Ja Morant's kind of sitting off ball. And it's like, Desmond Bane, take us home. And if you are the Dallas Mavericks, that's what you want. Like, Desmond Bane's obviously a really good player. He's struggling this season, but you will take that shot over anything Ja Morant can create for himself or for others. And here we go, very next possession. Ja Morant is just sitting on the wing, waiting for an opportunity to touch the ball, and he doesn't. And then, to wrap it all up, on that right wing, 3 shots in a row for the Dallas Mavericks, 2 from Dinwiddie and the last one from PJ Washington. So again, his stat line is not going to showcase how much he meant to this game or to this team in general, because since he's come back from, I think it was a knee injury, the team has been perfect. Like, they have not lost since PJ Washington has been incorporated back into the lineup. And it's one of the things about the Dallas Mavericks. Now, I know a lot of teams are also dealing with injuries, but this was one of the first times where they were almost completely healthy. Najee Marshall did not play in this one, and then you had Klay Thompson on the minutes restriction. But it's just cool to see, I don't know, one of these players that the on-court impact is not always box score related. And I talked about this a little while ago, but sometimes, and we're seeing it on 2 different things. You see it with the Orlando Magic. I know they lost by 1 million yesterday, but sometimes having that star player out can empower other people to step up. Luka Doncic missed 5 games, and the team was perfect in that time. A lot of that is Kyrie Irving taking the reins as the number 1 scoring option, but a lot of that was other people kind of extracting and doing things they normally don't do. Najee Marshall is a perfect example of playing your role and playing it well, but when my number is called, I'm going to do some of the other stuff. Because we look at 3-and-D players as that's what they do. They sit in the corner, they shoot threes, they play great defense. Najee Marshall has not always been that. He's reverted to that because that's what gets him paid. He's reverted to that because that's what gets him on the floor. But Luka Doncic is out, and now Najee Marshall is posting people up. He's putting the ball on the floor. He's floater, he's this and that. Again, he's not in this game specifically, but it is just a showcase of, like, these are real NBA players, not just what we put their title as. Also got to talk a lot about Luka Doncic because in this game, he was incredible as well. The last 2 games that they've played, he's decided to start off as the guy. Like, it's Luka Doncic, right? He's always the guy. But, like, starting off first halves by putting up 20s, and he was doing this a lot last year as well. But I think it opens up the game so much for his teammates when he comes out and he has these explosive first halves, and then you have to adjust, because early into this game, they were guarding Luka with single coverage for the entirety of the first half. It was like the rookie, Jalen Wells, who's probably my favorite rookie in this class, not named Modest Buzelis. He had to guard Luka Doncic. And I don't know a rookie in the league that can do that successfully, right? So Luka Doncic took advantage of that, got him in foul trouble very early on, and then they reverted to seeing 2 bodies or blitzing him a little bit more in that second half when it was more Marcus Smart / other people. Also got to get a ton of love for Derek Lively, because this is a team in the Memphis Grizzlies that really pride themselves on getting to the basket, finishing around the rim. And I pulled the stat. Let me see if I can find it. This stat is from Digging Basketball. Shout out to them. It's a Substack. Memphis shot 15 for 30. 50% in the paint when Lively was on the court, and they shot 64% in the 16 minutes that he wasn't on the court. So again, just being one of the premier rim protectors in basketball. And this is an ugly, ugly win where they turned the ball over 20 plus times, and they shot 20 plus free throws, and what they shoot 60% from the line, something disgustingly bad like that. Like, this is not a game you normally would win. Of course, you got the whistle advantage, but if you're not hitting the free throw, it don't even matter. Yes, 68% from the free throw line. Yikes. One thing I am monitoring from them is their drastic difference in the shots that they're generating. Now, obviously, these numbers are somewhat skewed, a 20-game sample size, and again, 5 of those were without their number 1 3-point creator in Luka Doncic, but they were one of the highest frequency 3-point teams of basketball last year. Now they're in the second half. How do we say that? In the bottom third in basketball. And they're taking more mid-rangers than ever before. Again, it's just something I'm monitoring. We'll see how those numbers look in 10 more games, so we get a bigger sample size of Luka being with the Clays, who's not having the greatest shooting year, even Najee Marshall. Basically, their 2 biggest acquisitions are not shooting 3-pointers well, and he's Klay Thompson. Like, I just don't expect him to be this bad from shooting the ball. And I know he was on a minutes restriction, but I am curious to see how comfortable Jason Kidd will be when he's off his minutes restriction and not playing him down the stretch if he's not providing the three-point shooting that they need. Because again, you saw parts of this game where it was Ja Morant kind of taking advantage of Spencer Dinwiddie or Quentin Grimes, who's at least a plus defender. And sometimes you kind of need a Najee Marshall to close out a game over Clay, who we saw in the clips that I showed you, he was getting taken advantage of by those guards. Again, Jason Kidd this is like what the deepest team he's had as a Dallas Mavericks coach. So I'm just curious to see how he continues to balance things when they are completely healthy. And that's all I got. Shout out to the Mavericks.